Okay, well, I'm ready if you guys are, or do you guys, you guys are just doing whatever? But you guys have hoodies on.
Yes.
Oh fuck yeah, dude!
When in Rome.
RGB. We even
Yeah,
got the on my screen. It's red, green, blue. It's
yeah, same
perfect.
here actually.
Oh my, oh my god, this is gonna be the best moment of my life. Okay, well, I guess there's no point in stalling. Let's go ahead and get started. Um, First of all, thank you so much for taking some time, you guys. I know you guys are probably super hard at work, and I know who you are. I know that you guys are two of the Giga Chads over on the Diablo 4 side, some of the blasters over there. But if you wouldn't mind, can you guys introduce yourselves and just what you do for the D4 team?
RGB, right? Go with red.
Ah, jeez. Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm Colin. I've been at Blizzard. I don't know why I'm doing an interview, but I've been at Blizzard for about 11 years now. Been on D4 for going on 6.5, maybe 7 years at this point. I am currently working on the systems and combat for Diablo 4.
I'm Zaven. I've been at Blizzard, I don't know, since 2008. Someone do the math. I've been here a long time. I've been on Diablo since 2010, including Diablo 3 from back then and Reaper of Souls all the way to today. And my role right now is Associate Game Director on Diablo 4.
God, you guys have been doing Diablo longer than I've been streaming. Wow. Okay. All right. So I thought we'd partition this into three different sections. They told me you only had about an hour, so I'll take a temperature at about that time. If you've got to go, I understand. The first section will be about season 11. Second section will be about whatever you want to call it, state of the Diablo, Mythbusters, whatever we want to call it. And then the last section will be about the future of the game, whatever we can get you guys to answer without getting you fired. Sound good?
Yeah, our PR people are standing right outside. They'll have the gun ready.
All right. So, okay, season 11. You guys have made a lot more changes in this season than it seems the previous ones, at least the most recent ones. One thing that you guys changed were the defenses and the difficulty. And that was something that kind of surprised me. It's something that I like to see. So, why did that happen? What prompted the team to make these changes? Are you trying to make the game more difficult, or what's the idea here?
Uh, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has changed, and we kind of always talk about this as sort of a question and answer kind of thing, right? So, the game asks the question and the player brings an answer, and so we've spent a lot of time, I think, up till this point since the game launched, right? Even base game, uh, updating the player's answer. You have new items, you have new aspects, you have new uniques, mythic uniques, like whole categories of stuff have been added. We've done seasonal powers, and we haven't really attacked like the baseline question, which is monsters and what they do. Monster behavior has been largely unchanged since the game launched. And if you imagine where we are today and where the game started, it's like a world of difference. It's very Diablo, I think, to have this big iteration cycle as you kind of have the live game. So because we knew that we were going to do the tower, it just made sense to kind of consolidate and say, like, okay, well, if the tower is going to go out, we should definitely work on the question part, and make sure that monsters are designed to operate in the modern version of the game and not necessarily a snapshot from years ago at this point, right? So that's kind of the combat stuff. And Colin, I don't know if you want to dig into defenses and things like that.
Yeah, I think the combat stuff you answered well. I think just to tag on to that, it's like in order for you to feel satisfaction from a game, like nuts and bolts game design, we have to create challenges for you to overcome, right? And if the challenges aren't interesting, or they're the same, or they're too easy, you don't really get much satisfaction. So I felt like Monsters was a really big opportunity to bring back some combinatorics, some nasty affix combinations to really, create a fun challenge for you. At the same time, challenge in Diablo Diablos are always very subjective, right? There's a lot of different ways to have skill expression. Like maybe you're so tanky that you can just stand in the Inferno Blast. You don't even care about it. And we like that. Like we like you being able to graduate out of these challenges and just overpower and sort of overcome these challenges through stats. At the same time, we also like if you want to forgo those stats, you want to be a little bit more glass cannon. It requires more of your dexterity and input skill, right? So we just wanted to support that a little bit more on the monster side. We felt like that was lacking. On the systems and defensives end, part of this is sort of creating more design space for us, to be totally candid. One thing that we felt was that the current resistance and armor system was designed for the game that had 2 world tiers. And it didn't give us a lot of space to create more depth and sort of tail to the defensives of Diablo 4. We didn't like that. We didn't like how easy and sort of shallow the defensives were. We wanted to provide a little bit more of a tail on the defensive end so that players had other vectors to make themselves powerful. So that's why we're moving to more of a rating system. Candidly, we're also looking at adding more torments, and we felt like the constant penalization of resistance and armor was going to be really obnoxious if we added, like, let's just say double the amount of torments, right? So we wanted to make that a little bit more streamlined. So you're not constantly having to stat check, through 8 different torments, for example. I pulled that number out of my ass. So.
Okay, wow. That was okay, so that's a lot. That's a lot there. So okay, one question I have for you is you said that you made monsters more difficult and you add deadly affixes, but did you guys also change like the actual logic or the behavior of monsters? And if you did, can you explain like what's the difference between the old school monster in D4 looking at you trying to attack you versus the new one that you've designed?
Yeah, I'll put it like pretty simply. It's a lot more of the monsters like routine is based on how quickly they can perform actions now. So before, when we launched the game, we had this idea, and you experienced this as well, right? Where the game was going to be a lot slower. Like you're going to be toe to toe with this Goatman brute, and you wanted these moments of opportunity to attack him. So he's going to jump up, and you're going to like dodge out of the way and hit him. Obviously, the game has not worked like that for a long time at this point. So now, instead of the monsters being more cooldown driven, like on the back end, the designers would tune like, okay, the Goatman brute is going to do this every 5 seconds, and then he's going to melee attack every 2 seconds. A lot more of it is sort of randomly selecting between what are the various options I have. Am I going to basic attack? No. Am I going to overhead slam? No. Am I going to try and circle the player to create some distance? A lot more of it is driven by how fast the monster can perform those actions, just like a player. So it's more sort of tied to the attack speed of the monster now. And we've also scaled the attack speed as you increase in difficulty. So in that sense, because the monster can attack faster and move faster, they're thinking faster, and the torment and difficulty is going to cause them to perform those actions faster, albeit a little bit more randomly. So it's not as like, here, robot, here's the steps of actions that I want you to take. It's here's all the actions you can take and randomly select between them, and how fast you do that is based on how fast you attack and move.
Another big piece of this is just kind of adding texture to the experience as you play. Because it's not so cooldown driven, that just means when you kind of go into a fight, even the underlying populations and the compositions of monsters have changed across the board. So where we were spawning Goatman as a family, we had this kind of rigid structure of how they would spawn. It's like, oh, it's always just like this sub mixture of things. Like, no, it's like, no, sometimes now you just get a bunch of ranged, and that's okay, right? So trying to add kind of more spikes throughout the experience, and again, just more texture when you're fighting these monsters hundreds of times, thousands of times, or whatever throughout your experience. And then the affix side kind of adds to that as well, right? Every single like affix you add, the combinatorics of that starts spiking dramatically, right? Add 1, add 2, add 3, add 4, so on and so forth. So making sure that your first run in the pit and your second run in the pit are maximally different just means that there has to be a lot of opportunities for the game to give you different things, which means we have to create more options, right? So a bunch more affixes, a bunch more varied monster behaviors because they're kind of more RNG driven rather than the step-by-step kind of, execute a computer program sort of thing. Just means that the texture possibilities are wider than they have been usually.
Yeah, it seems like
Yeah.
the
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the diversity would be better, and it seems like the cooldown system, while it might have worked like at D4 when it was a little bit slower, I think the pace and the power creep of it with the new system that you've designed, where they just attack based on their attack speed and they just get more powerful as they go, would be a much better design going forward, and you actually feel a sense of progression in the monsters themselves and not just yourself as you get further into the game.
That's a really great point. And I think it goes beyond even difficulty. Like when a monster becomes or is promoted to an elite or a champion, for example, they have a much higher HP pool and you see a lot more of those behaviors. So I'll give you an example. Before we didn't make those like little spider minis elites ever, because it's like, well, that's kind of weird if we did that. But when you think about it from the, okay, we want to create this sort of black box with all this combinatorics, it's actually kind of cool if these little guys got promoted, because what previously happened was when they're normal, you just stomp them and they die instantly. So they have a pretty fast attack speed and they hit you pretty, quickly. When you promote that to champion, it's much more interesting, right? Because they're going to live a little bit longer, a little bit scarier. So those are some of the tweaks that we think you'll see a lot more of it in the champion elite space when they get promoted. Because we wanted to keep normals like still the sort of trash and fodder. It's more just like the default. Do you have enough damage? Do you have enough tankiness? Normals we're not super worried about. They're there more to fulfill the power fantasy.
Yeah.
And then one other flavor thing that I think is kind of cool in terms of texture is that like undead or skeletons, for example, have a really low awareness now. So like you can almost walk up to them and hit them, and then they're like, oh, and they attack you.
They're zombies.
Just little things like that. Yeah, right. Like so little things like that. Before everything would just globally aggro at the exact same time, and we just felt like that wasn't very interesting. And I will say, like, again, to the point of like, where are you going to experience these things? I think most players, especially blasters like yourself, will probably not notice too much of a difference when you're just owning things, right?
Right.
Like when you're just in the flow and you're just fucking, or you're just farming.
Go ahead.
You're
Just
probably
let
not
it
going to.
rip. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
I
so
don't
I
want
have to look. Are they going to
So
get mad at me? Yeah. So I think what you're probably going to experience it more is in the capstones and tower pushing or pit pushing, right? When the sort of pace of the game slows down and the time to kill monster on monsters is much longer. So that's where we're hoping to get some of that. We're hoping to recreate the like capstone moment where it's like, I'm going to tackle this early, and you're going to feel a lot more of those changes. So
And
Uh,
just to connect this one last thing to the tower, because another piece of this is not just their behaviors and the affix pool and things like awareness radius, the relative like danger a monster poses, its health pool, how much health does it even have, and how much damage does it even do, and how deadly is it? All of that has actually had a pass as well, and that is the stuff that is used to derive their value in the tower. So now that we've kind of got a really nice standardized approach to where we can start measuring a monster's value because of their deadliness and how long it takes to kill them and things like that, that gets extrapolated into the score for tower. So the more dangerous a monster is, generally speaking, the more value it's going to give you, right? The more HP it has, the more value it's going to give you. And that systemically also crawls through the whole champion elite system too. So those guys are worth more as well. So tower is not just like kill one guy, get 1 point, right? It's very much dependent on what you're killing. So if you see a bunch of spider minis, you're like, okay, well, I know they're not worth a lot, right? But if I see the elite, I'm gonna focus on that because that's worth more, potentially. So
Yeah, that was something that we had to solve constantly in Diablo 3 to get a top clear. You had to figure out what the monster families were that could spawn and go for the ones that were super valuable. Okay, well, we're 23 minutes in. We're on question 1 of 40. So try to. I love it though. I wish we could talk for like 10 hours. I would love to drill more into everything here. I do have a question though, and you guys said something about how you want to like build up the power fantasy. You just don't want to be dominating like right away, otherwise like you're not really playing a game. Is the intention? I couldn't really tell from the PTR because you use like the guy to boost you. Are we going to start with no skill points? Because it felt very weird to start with 15 skill points. I already have my core skill maxed. I already have my movement skill at level 1, and I'm already owning. I mean, that was fun for a while, but now it's like, ooh, are you guys changing that?
yeah, absolutely. You're going to be starting with 1 skill point. We are doing a little freebie because we've updated the seasonal ranks. You'll get 1 skill rank just to get a basic from the season's journey. It's one of the first chapters. So you'll log in. You should go to the season's journey, claim your 1 skill point for your basic. But yes, the intention is that you're going to start from 1. You're going to gain those skill points, and you're able to earn those back through doing season's journey capstones and other content. We really wanted to sort of drill into that like 0 to hero that is so fun about Diablo, and we felt like that was really being disserviced by starting at effectively level 16 out the gate. So it's only for like an hour or so, but we think it makes itemization feel better when you're leveling. We just think it sort of actually makes you feel like you're working for some of the rewards you're getting in it. It's much more satisfying.
Yeah,
And then the
I
healing function is the other end of that, right? You don't start with endless healing anymore.
that's exactly what I tried on the PTR. I tried with like the higher, the smarter monsters. I turned up the difficulty. I went with no skill points, and I went to Helltide, and I was like running for my life. I was like, all right, wait a minute, where's my 7 points in my core skill already? I don't have a teleport right here, so it did make a difference. Um, so the last thing I want to ask on this is, I don't think I don't if I remember correctly, this was not in the PTR, but you guys moved to the toughness stat, and you said that you wanted toughness. You already answered this question. You said you wanted toughness to be there because you thought like the constant penalties with the increased torment tiers would be stupid, which I agree with. But one thing is, when you mouse over an item on the tooltip itself, does it tell you the toughness change, the change in the value of the toughness, so you can understand if this is even an upgrade for you or not? Because I don't think it was in the PTR.
It wasn't. No, it's a really good suggestion and idea. It's something that it's one of the learnings we've taken from the PTR is that like, yeah, you really want to be able to sort of tell the toughness difference. So that is something that we've taken and we want to make better.
Okay. Okay. So capstones, they were there, and then you removed them, and then I think I made a video a year ago, so a year or so ago, and I was like, why did they remove it? That was like a cool moment that you prepare for, and you go kill this guy, and then you can go to the next tier. Like, you felt like you did something. Then you took them away. I was like, I don't know about that one. And now they're back, and now you made many of them, and they tried the different layouts. And I went and tried them with like crappy characters. I went in 7 levels too low with complete dog shit gear at level 23, and it took me 45 minutes to clear it. Like, I cleared it, but it was like almost impossible. I was like, okay, so this is not so easy. But can you walk us through like that journey? You had them in the game, and then you removed them, and now you added a lot of them in the game. So are they here to stay? Why are they back?
So capstones were added for the base game really late in development, like very, very late, as a kind of this way to make sure that we are creating a bridge for players to move through the difficulty tiers, right? And we knew that, going into Vessel of Hatred, we had plans to change kind of the difficulty system significantly, and it just felt incongruent with where the game was naturally going. And honestly, I think we sort of miscalculated how popular they were with players. At a certain level, we're like, oh, this is great. We're going to remove this barrier, right? Like the barrier's gone and it's going to be great. It's like, oh, actually, people like this way more than we anticipated, way more than what we felt getting feedback and hearing from the players. So on our end, it's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that, right? And then okay, now that they're gone, like I said, a whole bunch of the game had changed, and these were sort of a last minute addition. So getting them kind of repaired and brought back, we knew that doing that had to just be paired with something else. And so season ranks was a kind of a match made in heaven, I think. This idea that you would be progressing through the season and have these points where you can like go challenge this dungeon whenever you want, right? Trying to keep all the best parts of the original Capstone experience, but then having a bunch of new ones. And then your question about are they here to stay? Yeah, right now they're here to stay, and we're hoping that we can actually add and potentially rotate capstones in the future, so it's not just like the same static stat. So that's not going to happen anytime soon, right? These are just brand new, but we're open to kind of moving these things around and potentially adding new ones.
Yeah, I think there's like a interesting maybe design insight, which is like you have to think about like when we removed capstones, it was sort of on the heels of I would say season 4 and 5 when people were doing them at like level 10, right, where they were just sort of blasting through them because so much power had been added to the game, and it felt like it was like, oh, we'll remove the friction here, right? Like if players are just immediately blasting through these things, it's something that we can just sort of take out. But it was a miscalculation. I think it's also like an interesting push and pull with the audience. Like we've talked a lot in this call about satisfaction and challenge and overcoming it. We find like whenever we try and add some challenge into the game, it's like this sort of tricky, like We want you to be more satisfied with the experience, so we're going to ask you to jump through some hoops. And sometimes we get our knuckles wrapped for it, where it's like, oh, you're trying to slow the game down. But sometimes we think it's really important to have those friction points. And I think Capstones is a good example of like, here's this thing you're gonna work for to get some cool reward for it. So I think it's going to land in a really cool spot.
I
Kind
think
of the endless task to remove the bad friction and keep the good friction and know which is which.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's exactly that. It's like one thing that I've noticed in some of these games, the thing that doesn't seem to work is you can't always go one way or the other, right? And I think D4 got way too easy, way too quickly. So many barriers removed that a lot of like the long-term players that really, even not even the long-term players, even the people who started playing D4, who played it a couple of seasons in a row, they got so familiar with it or so good with it, and so many barriers had been lowered. It's like at a certain point you aren't even playing gaming, where you're essentially logging into the I win game. So it's that, and I'm sure it's not easy from the development side to strike that balance, as Colin said, but there has to be some moments where you have to actually stop and make a decent build and overcome some challenge to feel like you actually did something, right?
Totally. And if we don't do these things, like add some more depth to, defenses or update the monsters and stuff like that, we're worried that like the game will very quickly fast track into it's done in a weekend, and that's something we've heard from folks like you and a lot of our core players, that they don't want that. At the same time, when we do add these sort of friction points, um, you know, it isn't always super well received. Like season 1 is a great example of like, we didn't want to ride that train down of like making the game too easy and trying to make you work for CDR and resources and things like that. And it obviously didn't go over super well.
I still have nightmares when I saw the very first video of season 1, and you played the video and the guy walked up to the brain or whatever, and it rose up for 3 seconds and then it rose down for 3 seconds. And then the fight started. I literally looked at my chat. I was
Yeah,
like, it's
bad
over.
friction.
It's over.
Yeah, bad friction.
There's like little things like that. We were talking about like the game being slow and then eventually getting faster. And there's like elements where it's not, I'm not trying to simplify the work, but it's not like a global tuning thing. A really good example of this recently is doors. Like how fast do doors open? How fast does the collision go? So I don't know if people noticed in the PTR, a bunch of doors, their collision goes away immediately. The slowest door in the game, which I think was like the Mage Hall sort of thing, was like 4 seconds or some ridiculous number. So now it's like instant. Like we sped up the animation. All this stuff, the collision just vanishes immediately. And I know we didn't get them all. There's a lot of doors in the game, right? We'll just keep hunting. We'll keep finding them and keep
Yeah,
kind of removing these points of friction, right?
just like a month or two ago, I was talking to Zaven, like this fucking Infernal Horde store. It takes forever to open. I don't know if you've experienced this, Rax, but like you're running Infernal Hordes and you're just sitting there waiting for the door to open. It's like visually open, but you're still blocked. I think we removed it. But yeah, those kind of ear flicks get really tedious after 1,000 runs, right?
You know,
And
I
it's like definitely 1,000 cuts, right? Like no one cares about one door taking its sweet time, but like every door doing that, you're like, fucking, who put all these doors here? No.
I'll never get to ask this question on the big stage again. I've literally asked this like 1,000 times in every ARPG to my chat. I don't understand why doors are in ARPGs. Like, just think about the concept of a door, and then I know what the answer is going to be. The answer is going to be, well, we want to give you the opportunity to compartmentalize the monsters so you don't pull the whole room. And I was like, well, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go to Diablo 1. Diablo 1, there like weren't that many doors, and yet the monsters don't aggro until you go in line of sight. So that's not an answer. It's like I despise doors, like the whole concept of them in ARPGs. I've been dreaming of the day for me to complain about it on the big stage. So just I hate them. I hate all of them. Any of them, all of them, however long they take to open. I don't know why they're there. Why are they there?
How do you really feel? Sorry. Fun fact, there's like some hidden mechanics that I think the game moves fast enough these days that most people don't really notice. First off, monsters in Diablo 4 can open doors. If they call for help, they'll actually just like open the door and walk in. You can see this very clearly in jail dungeons, right? They'll just like, I see you. I'm smart enough to walk over to you, and they'll just open the door. And this also means monsters like the Butcher can open the door, right? So there's this space where you expect a level of safety, but we're kind of a gothic horror action RPG, and there's a little bit of a spook factor. When you just expect that you have to open the door, and the game says, "Nah, not this time." Right? No, no, no. The butcher knows you're here, and so he's going to open the door and he's going to come and get you. There's moments like that that get created. Diablo 1 example, right? Diablo 1, first floor, the catacombs, all the way to I think like 2 or 3, doors were pretty prevalent. They were all there, and it was actually for that reason. So you can kind of control the space of combat, and critically, you can close them. So if you open a door, it's 100 skeletons. Like nope, and you just close the door. Don't kill a monster in the doorway, guys. It'll actually block it.
I did that
But
on
as you go
Andariel
deeper,
in Diablo
yeah,
2. Yeah.
yeah. As you go deeper, though, in the Diablo 1 labyrinth, doors become scarce. Your ability to control the space becomes scarce. I think that's actually this problem space we have. Is it's not that doors exist, it's that where's the mechanism where they stop being in the way, right? They have a lot of value really early on and negative value later on. So maybe there's some ways we can mitigate the worst impact of it later while still protecting our normal players who just like are going through it. Maybe they're struggling in a dungeon in the beginning, right? And they still kind of get that cool thematic hit, that flavor hit, that gothic horror hit.
Yeah.
But then people who are blasting, going 700 miles an hour in a dungeon, they're like, oh, gotta open this door. Maybe there's something we can get like a skeleton key. Doors are open.
Maybe we just get rid of doors and GRs that are what are they called? Nightmare
Tower.
dungeons. But all of it, just in the end
Yeah.
game, and maybe that I would take that deal if we could get that one. Um,
It's an idea.
okay,
It's a good one.
let's talk about. I'm sure your guys' favorite subject for the last year or so. Let's talk about tempering and masterworking. I'm sure, like you've only heard like one or two complaints about that in the last year. Obviously, it was
Yeah.
almost universally hated. Now you hit the tempering for what you want. You only get one of them now. Masterworking, you click, if I remember correctly, you click upgrade 20 times. Then you click one final upgrade to try to GA the thing that you wanted to hit. And if you don't hit it, then you can reset just that one. And there is a little bit of work that you have to put in. You have to get the materials. You have to find the recipe for the tempering that you want. And then if you obviously miss the masterworking, you have to redo it. So it's not completely deterministic, but I guess the question that I guess the two-part question I have is how did you guys land on this new system to change it? Because we knew it had to be changed because everybody hated it. And then the second part is are you worried that it's too deterministic besides those variables that I outlined, or are there more that I'm missing?
Yeah, so I'll talk about tempering real quick. So tempering, when we released it, was supposed to sort of be, we thought that like what we should probably do is say to you, we're going to, I'm just going to use the language, brick your item early. Because
Yeah.
we felt like bricking your item early would feel better than bricking your item later, right? Honestly, at this point, I think it's like, it could go either way, but I think like as we sort of sanded off the edges of tempering, right, through the sort of like feedback that, I feel like I should have more temper rolls if it has GAs, and I feel like the recipes are too big. The rest of the affixes should go from 6 to 3. We kind of just landed in a spot where it's like this is basically deterministic with extra steps, and maybe like 1 in a million items is going to brick. We think that feels really bad, right? When you feel like you should be earning the coin flip, but you're not, that feels infinitely worse than losing a 1 in 52, for example. So we made the decision to essentially allow you to sort of just temper the affix you want, because we felt like we were in that space already, just with more hoops that wasn't giving you the high highs and low lows that we initially had hoped for. We did worry about making it too deterministic, and that's why we added more and more affix to the base pool. We kind of wanted to say, okay, well, if we're going to give you this affix for free, then we do want you to find some more bases, and the bases should be a little bit harder to find, all the affixes you're looking for. So it was a little bit of a push-pull, right? Like, okay, we'll give you a deterministic affix, but we want the base items to matter a little bit more than. So that's the first part. As far as masterworking, I think a lot of the feedback was, let us roll back one rank. And we felt like the end stage of that, if you map out the statistics of that, it's eventually a 1 in 5, right? No matter what. Like if you can just roll it back, it's a 1 in 5, which is a very big difference between consecutive 1 in 5 3 times, right, to the third power. So we felt like this really, the sort of masterworking update was more just doing what the player wanted in a better UX flow, which is you want to be able to crit the affix you're looking for on a 1 in 5. I will say we are looking at, I'm maybe jumping ahead. I think the thing that is missing from masterworking is that excitement of trying to hit that specific affix that you like got a GA on, for example. So we're looking to like bring that back in some form. I felt like GAing an affix was a little bit too anemic, and we felt like we stripped out too much of the excitement of the current system. So does that answer the questions?
I mean, yeah, that last part is exactly exactly the essence of how I will feel, which I am not always indicative of the entire community, but it's exactly what you just said at the end there. It's how am I supposed to get excited about either of these two mechanics? I will find the recipe, I slap it on for tempering, and I will hit the GA eventually. I know I will on my masterworking, and if I don't, well, the other affix is decent, so I hit that as well. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about later on. But the thing that I'm looking for in hopefully a lot of different ways in Diablo 4 going forward is where is the dopamine hit? Where does something miraculous happen that I can print it off and go post it on my fridge and call my friends and tell them this thing that happened? I don't know if either of these systems will do that with the current iteration.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Like the dopamine, for us to create dopamine, right? Like you kind of have to have really high highs and low lows, right? There can't really be this sort of neutral middle ground for you to feel that excitement. So for us, it's been trying to find like what is a good delivery mechanism for that dopamine. Like obviously there's like the loot dopamine, which I think is different, right? Loot dopamine I think is more a mix of anticipation and like payoff. But for crafting dopamine and things like that, I think there does have to be sort of these high highs and low lows. And I think what we learned so far and what we're trying to do is I think the high highs and low lows really only make sense if your like median outcome is somewhere close to the high end. So I'll give you an example. Like I'm going to talk a little bit about sanctification. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I think like sanctification, especially on the PTR, we're trying to aim for something that was more like eternally relatable or something we could put into the game long term. We want to do some form of item gambling at the end, and we try to keep it a little bit tame. And I think like the learning from that is whenever we try and like do this thing that's right for the eternal game on a season, there's just so much seasonal expectation that this thing's going to blow everyone out of the water and change how you play every single season that we have to put a ton of power into it, which to go all the way back to my previous statement on like the median outcome has to be pretty good. In order to achieve that, like it has to be kind of tame, right? Like it can't be that the top end roll is going to be 1,000% better than the median outcome. And you can see this in tempering, right? Like part of why tempering feels really shitty to gamble is that there's only 1 in 5 affixes that is going to do anything for you, right? Like the weapon tempers is a great example of this, where like double projectiles on your core skill is obviously the only option for you. And that means that every other option, including the median outcome, it just isn't good. So sorry, that was a bit of a ramble, but
No, I love the rambling. I don't love these dogs barking. I don't know if you guys can hear it. It's
show us
driving
your
me
dog.
insane. Sorry about that. Yeah, I during the PTR, a lot of people were coming to my stream like, Rax, have you seen Sanctification? Did you see what happened to Rob? Rob had an item and he bricked it. It's like, guys, like the overarching idea here, maybe you don't like the implementation, is good. At the end of the game, instead of having our stupid sword with our 3 GAs on it, level 20 masterwork with the same tempering that everybody has, we got to do something. How many of these swords have you found? Most of you probably found 700 of them. Let's throw it into something and let's see if we can make the greatest sword ever. Like I didn't really understand like I understand, like, okay, going through the base game and having these gambles feels bad if you lose, but you have to have the opportunity to lose. in order, again, to feel like you're playing the game. It goes back to the starting with 15 skill points. Like you walk into Helltide and you're already mowing everything down. It is fun. It is fun, but it at a certain point, it's like, oof. So I don't know. I'm with you guys that coming up with a core mechanic for super endgame items to hit that mega dopamine, and also, as you said, and we've talked about this since Diablo 3, in a seasonal setting, if you have a mechanic, if you're gonna miss, if you're gonna get it wrong, at least get it wrong in the player's favor. If you get it wrong and it doesn't work for them and they hate it, they'll never let you. They'll never let you live it down.
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right.
Okay. We're on question 4. Nice. Nice. We're going. Okay. The tower. Seemed fun. Played it to only level 45, as we talked about before, with the monster things, with the progressing the timer, with the leaderboards. I mean, we finally have an end game thing with the leaderboard. Thank you for that, by the way. We've been begging for that. At least at that whatever mid-level, level 45, it was kind of indistinguishable from me from the pit, at least the gameplay. Maybe it's just because you're mowing it down. Maybe it is different at the highest level. I guess from your guys' perspective, how is the tower different from the pit? How is that going to feel different for players?
Yeah, so our goal, like, why are we even doing this in the way that we're doing this, by the way? So tower and leaderboards are in what we're calling beta. So even when season 11 launches proper, we're still going to be considering them in beta. And part of the reason, I mean, if anyone who played Greater Rifts back in the day just knows, day 1 versus day 300 of that feature, so much changed. And frankly, almost all of it at the time, and we're hoping we can do this again with the tower, was through dialogue with the community, and having the community have kind of a chance to have a voice and help shape this feature. The leaderboard isn't, for us. It's for the community. It's for this kind of social system for everyone to kind of engage with. So the goal has been, hey, we just have to stand this up so that we can start getting into the iterative cycle. And we know the baseline that players have been using is they've been using the pit as kind of a surrogate for this, in absent of an actual mode dedicated to it. And frankly, that's been great that they were able to find a solution, but it's also been a problem because it means we can't just update the pit whenever we want without messing the only competitive thing players have. So we know we have to decouple these. And you can kind of see this a little bit, right, with the season 11 mechanic in the pit. In a leaderboard sort of competitive format, do you really want the weird kooky stuff being the thing that determines your success, or do you want it to be as much about skill and skill expression as possible? So the pit's been kind of stuck in this spork mode, right? Where it's having to do these two things, one officially and one sort of unofficially. And a tower is a first stab at least having a place where we can start doing this competitive mode in a more official way. That actually helps free up the pit to start being crazy again. And it's not going to something that's going to happen overnight, right? Like it's not something that's going to happen immediately. We're taking initial step at it in season 11. But the more stable we make the tower, the more crazy the pit can become. And the perspective here has been like for competitive mode, you want some sense of consistency between runs, right? Otherwise, we're back to fishing, and it's like, well, the output of the random generation dictates my success entirely, right? I got the good run, I did it. But for kind of a grinding PvE mode, you actually want variety. You want crazy stuff to happen. I would love it if I walk into the pit and it's like, nope, it's all goblins all day, top to bottom. That doesn't really make sense in a competitive format necessarily, right? But hell yeah, that would be fun as hell to have in the pit. And it's actually kind of a good example, even going back to Greater Rifts and regular Rifts. Goblin Rifts happen, Goblin Greater Rifts don't, right? So we look at this as kind of the initial stab at something like this. What we're looking for is mechanical parity with Greater Rifts in particular, and a far more streamlined version of the pit. The comparisons are apt, but if you really look at it kind of deeply, there's a lot of nuanced differences between them that I think people have been starting to understand and notice. And we're actually seeing kind of the opposite of don't put leaderboards on the pit, right? Put the pit into the tower instead, because they're noticing those difference in the flow. Dungeon generation is entirely different. The algorithm is entirely different between the two. It's like, well, the rooms are the same. It's like, yeah, but they generate totally differently. There is no real dead end or severe dead ends, right? I've seen crazy screenshots of the pit where it's like 5 miles this way and then you're supposed to go the other way, right? So like these little things we're ironing out of the tower. And the intention is at some point down the line where we're feeling really comfortable with this and the community is telling us they're having fun, all those improvements is stuff we're open to bringing back to the pit. But again, the divergence point is going to be one is going to be far more focused on consistency, and the other is going to be far more focused on variety. It's just going to take us a while to get there, and we're kind of seeing the initial separation of this concept from the pit into the tower. And again, I think that's what's going to primarily open the door for the pit to be whatever the hell is fun versus whatever the hell is great explicitly for racing as this unofficial leaderboard, right?
I That's something I had no clue on. I did not know that the tower being there similar to the pit was an avenue to open the pit to be something crazy. It kind of the way you described it reminds me kind of the visions of enmity in Diablo 3 where you can literally spawn inside of town and then be fighting 3 bosses, or you might be fighting 40 treasure goblins. So I guess the future plan is to have the tower be the very competitive, no dead end thing where the pit's going to be very fun. So let me ask you a question. So obviously the inspiration from the towers from Diablo 3 and Greater Rifts took uh, I would say a tremendous amount of at least knowledge and some amount of mechanical skill at least to get a top clear. Like if you're playing Barb, for example, you have to spear the whole monsters through. You have to ground stomp them together. You have to burn them down with area damage. You have to systematically spawn the pylons, yada, yada, yada. Do you anticipate that? And it's hard, to be honest with you, it's hard for me to imagine this in Diablo 4 because I don't know if we exactly have the same kinds of abilities. I don't know if we benefit as much like with with crazy mechanics like area damage. And I'm not suggesting that you bring area damage forward. But do you think that the level of the skill in the tower is going to reach the same things that were in Greater Rifts?
I will say a lot of the stuff that kind of, yeah, I know you've done guides and videos and things like that on Greater Rift pushing. Um, but a lot of that stuff was kind of emergent. It's not like we, other than like Flavor of Time, I guess, or something like that. We didn't explicitly go in and say like, okay, these specific things are designed explicitly to make a Grid Rift run winnable or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That came later as the mode was better understood by both players and developers. But I expect some emergent stuff to happen. And part of the kind of the back and forth between us and the community and the iterative cycle that we're looking to have with this feature is going to be trying to take those things into account, right? Players are going to discover things, good or bad, right? And it's going to be something that we're going to be talking about probably very openly about, hey, we're going to disallow this, we're going to allow this, and we're going to double down on this, we're going to turn this off, and things like that. So the comparison, I don't think, is going to be one to one, and frankly, it shouldn't be. So one of the pillars that we've got internally for the tower is what we call only in Diablo 4, right? What makes this distinct and makes it belong to this game as opposed to a transplant from a different game? And we're not obviously hitting that right now, and we actually don't think we are. So anyone who feels the same way, we agree with you. That's something that we're going to be chewing on down the line. But right now, the goal is stability. Um, I know on the front facing, it's like, well, it's the same monsters and so on and so forth. It's like the entire back end for this has been built from scratch, like all of it. So everything that's powering this behind the scenes is literally brand new. We're making it brand new to be as flexible as we possibly can make it, because I can imagine a future where a season modifies the tower. We want to leave the door open to that, right? Where we can iterate on it and say like, hey, when we're gonna add this thing, and then in the next season, it's gonna become a part of the tower or something like that. And I don't know what those are, and frankly, we don't have any solid plans. I'm not trying to tease anything, but the idea is let's make something as flexible as we can so it could be very reactive and very responsive to what the community needs from it, right? Because ultimately, it's for you guys. So that's the ideal, right? Let's see if we can hit it.
So
Yeah,
basically, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
just to touch on like I think you're maybe alluding to some of the group play stuff with like the barb needing to pull in ZTPS and that
That
sort of
was a
thing.
question later. Group plays, support characters. Is that going to be a thing? That was one of my questions.
Oh, that's an amazing question. Yeah, I'll say like when we launched the game, we had a pretty firm philosophy that we didn't want any sort of double dipping across classes because we had heard a lot of feedback that players wanted to make sure that D4 wasn't a required multiplayer game. So we felt a little gun shy on allowing a lot of those sort of multipliers because they could also run like way out of whack, right? As you've seen now with a lot of the multiplicative things that we have in the game. But I think going forward, we're a lot more lax, especially with the tower. We think that that kind of interaction in DPS is actually a really fun way to sort of build into, horizontal progression and that sort of thing. So we do want to support that more going forward.
So if I can summarize, like, as far as like the design of the tower in terms of like the mechanics and the skill required, it's like when you built GRs for Diablo 3, you didn't have the intention of we're going to pull this all and stomp it and area damage it down and spawn the pylons, and you just observed what happened and what became the meta, and it just became what it became. And now you're saying with the tower, the team is going to pay attention to what are the intricacies, what are the metas, and you're going to discuss how they flow in the competitive scene and whether you like them or not and make changes like that going forward. And sounds like we are much more open to like supporty and group play mega mechanics like we used to have in Diablo 3 potentially going forward in the design.
Yeah.
Keeping the door open for that, I think, is just going to give it legs. It's going to make it more interesting. And just some things to throw out there, like, right now on PTR, you have to unlock a tier via the pit to be able to play it in the tower. That's actually just a temporary measure.
Yeah.
When season 11 actually launches, you can just unlock tiers by just playing the tower. That's PTR is PTR, right? In the actual launch, that's actually going to be the plan. Is you can push the tier up with either mode, however you want. So.
Wait, let me ask you one question on a dirty topic, and then we can move away from the tower. And honestly, I don't even know if there's anything you guys can do about this or anybody can do something about this. But I'll ask it anyway. So when I was playing other seasons, there would always be people messaging me, "Hey Rax, I have 200 Duriel runs. You want to run them?" I'm like, "You have 200 Duriel runs. I have like the most powerful build. I've been playing all day, and I have like 7." They're like, "Don't worry about it. I got 200 runs. You want to do it or not?" Da 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 da. My question is, do you think RMT is just going to ruin the tower? Because people just, it happens in every game. It's a problem. Everyone goes to these third-party sites. I get all these emails all the time. Rax, put my Diablo 4 currency site in your YouTube video, and I'll do whatever it is. Obviously, we don't do that, but do you guys ever have conversations about this, about RMT? Do you guys have anything you can do to stop this, or is whoever's going to clear the tower whoever has the biggest credit card?
So there's this feature in other games. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called solo self-found.
Mm,
It's something that we've been
yes, I've
talking
heard of
about a
it.
lot,
Yeah.
and what we might do with something like that. So we are actively talking about it. We are looking into doing it. It's not
Fuck
going to happen
yes.
in 11, but I also want to throw out there that whatever we do here, kind of taking the Diablo 4 perspective. Okay, cool. All right, he's happy. That's good. Is whatever we do, it has to be in the expression of Diablo, right? Like, what is the right expression of an SSF mode, solo self-found mode in Diablo 4, is something that we are discussing actively right now. I don't have a timeline to share other than it's not season 11. But stay tuned. And as we kind of communicate more about those plans, we really want people to weigh in and start telling us what they think about the version that we might end up shipping.
Yeah, I understand. You guys have like a different architecture, right? You have an open world, you have world bosses, da 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 da. You literally have a multiplayer only mode raids.
Yeah, co-op.
Yeah, you have cap. Yeah, so I personally, other people probably won't forgive you. There's going to be people out there that say SSF has to be. I'm alone. I never see a player. I can never interact with the player in any way. Data, and that's SSF. And if it's not that, I hate your game. I'm more forgiving in that when I do like the soloable activities that they're solo and I can't trade for gear and I can't swipe for gear or anything like that. Like for me as an individual, not speaking for the community, that would be good enough for me. So anything between that and super completely isolated mode would work for me. So that's so relieving to hear that it. Are you guys saying like it's coming, just not we don't have a date? Is that what's happening? It's coming for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Again, not season 11. Don't hold us to that. And I can't say which one beyond that because we have to sort things through. But and again, we're still coming up with a final plan, and more will be shared over time. And there's going to be a lot more transparency, I think, on tower and leaderboards than maybe folks have gotten used to. We know we're going to have to kind of have it that way to make it the best feature it can be.
Okay. So let's move into like the state of Diablo section, the Mythbuster section. By the way, it's been an hour. I have a million more questions. I'm having a blast. How are you guys doing on time? How are you guys feeling? Or what's the status
For
here?
you, Rax, we can keep going.
My
I'm so
man.
comfy. I don't feel like moving. So
I mean, I there's a reason we wear it every day. There's a method to the madness here. Okay, so these are tougher questions, but let's just rip the band-aid off. Actually, I think Zaven, you pretty much already just brought this up, and if I was understanding what you said that the team agrees with this. If I'm not putting words in your mouth here, but a lot of people are worried about the that Diablo 4 is moving just to being Diablo 3. It's going like Diablo 3.5. We kind of talk like in the tower how like it's not like a perfect transition yet. It's still in beta. If you don't think it's if it's the right iteration of it, you're right. The team feels that way. Have you guys been getting this feedback, and how do you guys go through the process of what you add to D4 or not? Are you just trying to make Diablo 4 the next version of Diablo 3? You said one of your pillars is how do you make Diablo 4 unique? I guess some people feel like that hasn't been shining through at all lately.
I think there's a lot of differences, just obviously between the games. I think the system's complexity of Diablo 4 is much higher than in Diablo 3. Like, just compare the two paragons, right? They're not really a direct comparison. Compare the two skill systems and
Yeah.
things like that. So I think there's plenty of differences in it. We're not actually looking to erode any of those things, and we're not talking about going back to the old kind of skill rune model or anything like that. Um, and I kind of I think the right view, it's the view I try to take as much as possible, is somewhat dispassionate. Um, if there's a feature that's right for the game, I don't super care where it comes from. If it comes from a Diablo game, hell yeah, that just kind of means we've proven out it works, right? And it's going to fit in better. But beyond that, it's like, well, we just kind of borrow anything from anywhere. A lot of the modes that even looking as far back as Diablo 2, even as far back as Diablo 1, they borrowed a lot of things from other projects, other games outside of the Diablo series, right? And that's just kind of been true throughout. So the intention is not to make this Diablo 3, and it's not to make it Diablo 3.5. Although it's funny because I remember at one point Diablo 3 getting a Diablo 2.5 moniker. So it's never ending, right? And that's okay. It's actually a good thing, I think, when people are like, I see enough of this other stuff in there. It means they're at least kind of staying true to the series to some degree where they feel related. But I think it's always important to do that only in Diablo 4 pillar. Frankly, for everything, what is it that makes Diablo 4, and explicitly not Diablo 2, Diablo 1, Diablo Immortal, or Diablo 3, right? We've got a lot of Diablos right now. So it's not a one size fits all solution either. right? Because sometimes, damn, Diablo 3 did it right. Damn, Diablo 2 did it right. And we just look at those things and say, okay, well, how do we adapt that? And how do we make it fit in Diablo 4? And something always changes in translation. It always changes when it gets to Diablo 4. So we can't be purist about it either, because some things just don't map, right? The rune system in Diablo 3 doesn't directly map to Diablo 4, no matter how much we try to shove it in.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. So it just seems maybe so that's relieving to hear that you'll borrow anything from anywhere. I guess it just seems so. I guess the phenomenon that's happening here is just lately the things that we've been bringing in happen to be from D3. But going forward, you're not looking at D3 on the whiteboard and saying, what's the next way that we transform Diablo 4 into this game?
No.
Revealed our secret. No. I think it's a great way to put it. I think it's very fair. Also, just like touch a little bit on the design philosophy, right? Like, Blizzard's a very iterative studio. Like we talk about iteration and things like that, and part of that, a huge part of that, is driven by what the fans are telling us and what the fans are liking. And I'll just give you like a very like interesting evolutionary loop that we've been on. If you remember D3 at launch, there was a lot of inspiration from D2. And I think you remember a lot of like D2.5. There was like discrete world tiers and difficulties, and there's level locking, and then eventually monster power to replicate players 1 through 8 in D2. And then eventually D3 landed on Torments, which essentially creates those floors that players 1 through 8 was doing. And you think about D4, and a lot of the feedback has been like, oh, we want more infinite scaling. We want more sort of difficulty that scales forever. We like the systems that allow us to really push everything to the limit. And I think like you naturally sort of start to evolve into similar design spaces that D3 went through when we went from a fixed sort of difficulty to ever scaling and infinite scaling. That has a lot of system implications that have very similar answers. So there's this sort of like funny phenomenon where like everything in the ocean floor eventually evolves into a crab. Like sometimes there's like overlapping, sort of design spaces that we do run into. And it's definitely not on purpose where we're looking at D3 and like, what should we copy paste from D3? Our goal is always to like, how do we make D4 more fun? How do we grow the game? How do we make the game bigger? And sometimes it's like, yeah, you know what? Toughness works super well in D3. We're going to have more torments, and we don't want to like reinvent the wheel on this. We know it's going to do the things that we want it to do, and we'd rather spend time on like other new things than like try and really spend a ton of time coming up with a completely new defensive system when the current one we feel like isn't working for us in an infinitely scaling game.
The monster power example and the players 8 and all that kind of stuff is honestly it's such a good case study of this. Because D2 started with this idea, right, of the discrete kind of difficulties, and then you had players 1 through 8 to be able to modulate that for yourself. And then you go into Diablo 3, and we don't have that second part. We just have the first part. We add it, we streamline it into Torments. Diablo 4 comes out. Guess what? We're back to discrete difficulty tiers, and then we realize, oh no, this is bad. And hopefully we'll kind of break this cycle at some point. But it really is kind of sort of this crab thing. It's like, well, eventually the game evolves to the point and the player base learns enough about it where they're going to start wanting systems that are very similar to each other. So I know we call it Torment, Diablo 3 called it Torment, but under the hood, go back, it's just players 8. And a lot of systems and features kind of tend to be in this sort of evolutionary thing where the nearest neighbor is Diablo 3, but actually, if you go further back in the iteration cycle, it's actually directly from D2, or in some weird cases from Diablo 1, right?
That's very interesting insight. So you said that Blizzard is a very iterative company, and it seems like for a lot of Diablo 4's life cycle, we have been redoing things. I was going to start rattling them off, but maybe it would be easier to say I can't think of very many mechanics that haven't went through some kind of like major redo. And in a lot of cases, is the game better now than it was 2 years ago? I mean, it definitely is. It's just tough because it's hard sometimes for the community to get excited about, hey guys, we're making defenses matter. So instead of capping your armor at 1,000, now you'll just stack it with this new stat, it's like, even if it's better for the game, it's hard for the community to get excited about it. Um, can you guys talk a little bit about like that iterative process or redoing mechanics? Is this, I mean, I would imagine you guys don't like doing that, right? You guys don't like redoing all these things. Are we getting to a more stable point where the mechanics are getting nailed down and we can maybe focus more on new content? Or is it a pillar in the Diablo 4 team to be consistently like taking a system here and there and here and there and redoing it perpetually?
This is maybe like a strange example, but when between the time that the game launched and around Vessel of Hatred, Colin might remember the perfect timing more than me here. I think every single nightmare dungeon or dungeon in the game that can be a nightmare dungeon under the hood changed in some way. Like every single one,
Yep.
all 100 plus.
Yep.
And that happened kind of slowly and sort of like um, really in a really targeted way to aim at the fact that we knew all these changes were happening. We knew there were some areas that were, less than great. Let's be honest. When we first launched it, we knew we wanted to be iterative and wanted to improve stuff. I think that's kind of the heart of it. The intention is not to replace everything just because we can, but every time you replace one part, and maybe that part's better now, you look at the whole. We try to get this holistic picture of the whole game. Okay, what is not pulling its weight? What is not helping support the player experience in a positive way? That kind of goes back to all the combat update stuff that we did in season 11. Monsters had been untouched for years, if you really want to go back to like the beta period, right? Like actually years. We had not modified monster behavior, monster tuning, monster AI. We had not significantly deepened the affix pool that whole time, right? And so a part of the game just felt old and it felt derelict a little bit, right? Because it had not kept up in pace with everything else that we're doing. So being able to kind of take a step back, what does the game actually need to be added? But what are some of the old things that just aren't doing their job? Like we're gonna make those better because otherwise the game just gets all this cruft, right? It just has all this outdated stuff just lying around that no one cares about, doesn't give actual value to the player experience in any way. And frankly, for us, is a tax because now we have to maintain stuff that no one wants or cares about, right? So if either we can have it do its job or we can remove it, those are usually the options, right? The worst third option is never touch it. And I think we're kind of looking at, okay, what are the pieces of the game left to make better? Monsters seem to coincide really well with the tower update, so that's why monsters are up this time. But there's, I think we can all think of parts of the game that could be made better, and we're not done. Diablo 4 has a bright future, so.
Yeah, it's definitely like a where do we spend our time, right? Like we also try and pair some of these things with new stuff. We've added like a completely new world boss in Asmodan and things like that. And they're usually very different resources. So, when you think about like, well, are you spending a lot of time redoing mechanics? Usually we try and pair it with things that are new, and usually the resources that are redoing things aren't the same. They overlap with adding new things. Like adding Asmodan is completely different in terms of resourcing compared to like, let's update the toughness system, which actually was very simple for us to sort of do, and it allows us to add more stuff in the future.
So that brings up an interesting question, and don't answer this if it's going to get you in any kind of trouble or anything. But do you guys have less resources for the Diablo team in general, for, I don't know, just across the board, for seasons, for the expansion, or whatever? Have you guys gotten smaller since Diablo 4 has launched? Have people gone on to different projects? Or what is that like for you guys, if you can answer?
We're not going to talk about numbers, but I will say the the process that we use has evolved significantly. So, I think when you're thinking about the base game, it's one big launch, and we just know it's a big launch. So it's all hands on deck to this like one moment. And as soon as that moment's done, then we know we have multiple moments that we're going to be working on. We have multiple seasons, we have multiple expansions, we have events that we have planned. There's collabs, there's all these things. And so the team just naturally splits its focus. And it's actually very normal. And it's actually how the game was built, right? The entire team wasn't working on like one monster or one player skill at a time. For the entire development of Diablo 4, the team was spread wide, working on all parts of it simultaneously. And it just so happened that all those parts were releasing at the same time with Diablo 4's launch, and then again with Vessel of Hatred to some degree, right? But even in that case, we have um, kind of a more specific things that we're going after that map differently in time. So it's not that there's less resources or anything like that. Like it's not about that. It's more that we know we have certain things we're going to be releasing at certain cadence and we want to release those things. What does that release need? Let's give it what it needs, right? How does that feed into what happens after? It should be done smartly so that it helps us in the future in some way, right? We don't want the game to have these wild swings because we planned poorly. Ideally, season to season, it feels like, oh, there's this thing that we're building up, and you can see that sometimes with kind of the seasonal power system, right? As this thing that we kind of developed, and we were able to use it more, and eventually we got some feedback of, hey, maybe you're using it too much, and then we react and when we try different things with it. So it's not a head count issue or anything like that, right? It's how many things do we have going on, and what do those things need, and how can we architect it so we can kind of approach the game holistically instead of just like one thing at a time, right?
Makes sense. Appreciate it. So on that topic, this is probably the most asked question when I went to the community is talking about seasons. And whenever I talk to people about seasons, usually it always revolves around three main ideas that people are wondering. So first of all, no matter what kind of a season you make, me included, everyone's always going to ask for more, right? We'll always ask you to do more, which is good. We're always hungry for more content. But one common critique has been they wish the magnitude of the seasons, the magnitude of the changes were bigger, it would happen faster. That's one thing. The second thing is lately, as you just alluded to, we got powers, 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 powers again. But probably the number one thing that I hear the most from the community is they wonder why a lot of the seasons aren't around a mechanic that could go core into the game afterward at a certain point to add, just more things to do within the game. So I don't know if you guys want to address any of these three, but how do you guys go about seasons? Maybe have you guys heard this feedback, and what do seasons look like going forward for Diablo 4 if you guys are making any changes?
I can probably help with number three on like how do we make the systems and more like sort of content for the player to chew through interesting. One, we believe in this idea, right? Of like the season should be making Diablo bigger over time. It's why we've tackled things like Nightmare Dungeons and Infernal Hordes on like fleshing those out and making those even bigger and cooler, adding more lair bosses, etc. I think to touch on like let's just go back to sanctification as an example. I think what has been a challenge is that when we want to add really cool things to the game, like sanctification or mythics, the way to do it eternally, our hope is that the game gets bigger and there's more options and there's more build variety. I think the expectations of seasons, though, is that when we add this thing, it's super powerful and it's going to impact every single person's build, no matter who you are or what it is. Like Chaos Armor is a great example of this. And it's like, there's kind of like two outcomes, right? Like we can tune it for the eternal game where it broadens the game. It makes horizontal progression more interesting. It means that there's new items to chase that might fit into some XYZ build. And that's a very different tuning paradigm than Chaos Uniques impacts every single player who plays no matter what in this season. And I think if you just inject like Chaos Armor into the game wholesale at the current power level, I think the game gets pretty boring and bland. And you can look at Mythic Uniques as a great example of this, where Mythic Uniques are insanely powerful. Everyone's like, oh my God, Mythic Uniques are the coolest thing ever. We love them. We love that they're rare. We love that they're powerful. Fast forward a year from now, every top end build has the same 4 Mythic Uniques. And I think that's what would happen if you added something like Chaos Armor just wholesale into the game. Now, that doesn't mean that we're never going to add anything eternally into the game. We're trying to find our footing in the right way to deliver some of these mechanics again in the eternal game that doesn't do long-term damage to the game and sets us up in the audience for sadness in 6 months when every build is 4 mythic uniques and the same 2 chaos uniques in every slot, right? Then we have a very different problem. So I think we're still trying to figure out like what is the right way to sort of reintroduce a lot of these really cool seasonal things. Again, I'm kind of repeating myself in a way that isn't overall detrimental to overall like sort of health and overall game.
So can I ask you something on that before we go to the other two? So that if I'm understanding correctly, that there's two ways that you think about designing it. Either it immediately powerful impacts the season versus it's like a core mechanic. You kind of have to work through it and it fits in the overall game. Are you thinking as a team that, or maybe you have tried it and you've been bitten in the past, that if you released a season mechanic like option B, where it is kind of a core mechanic that we're trying out and it's not just a superpower right in the beginning and you do have to kind of work with it to be better, are you thinking that people wouldn't like that season or it would somehow go wrong?
I think it'd be flat. Like I think sanctification is kind of a good example of this, where we're pretty like conservative when it came to sanctification, because what we wanted was this idea of like, yeah, you have 700 of the same sword, and we want this like gamble to be on, sort of similar items, so it can push one over the edge.
Yeah.
There's a number of reasons why sanctification also didn't feel as powerful, right? We took power out of masterworking, etc. But I think that's like a good example, like most immediately, where we try and tune something for the eternal game and we get a lot of feedback that it doesn't have the like sort of spiciness or sexiness of like, holy shit, this new thing is impacting every single build and I'm way more powerful. So I think what we're trying to do is like, okay, let's take this thing. It's going to be really awesome for a season. Then we're going to take it out and we're going to workshop it in a way that can be delivered back into the eternal game that isn't going to be carrying all the weight of a season. And it makes the overall game and systems more interesting and bigger.
I think part of the reason why that option A for me, where it's just this amazing power and it just dominates, why that doesn't feel good to me is the current iteration of Diablo 4 with the stuff that we talked about earlier. How you start with 15 skill points, how you cap your armor and you're dominating, how you just do so much damage that when the seasonal theme that I'm given is just this really sexy additional power, it's like for me personally, that was the last thing that I wanted. What I wanted was I wanted something to do. I wanted a mechanic to work through. I'm wondering if after a lot of these changes that you're implementing go through, let's just imagine what the game is very balanced. The game is very challenging. You have these capstones to overcome. If you add a big sexy power there, does that just take us back to where we were, where you're just running through it versus a new mechanic? It's like, every time I get to the capstone, I do a lot of damage, but I don't have any defense. But they added this new crafting system, which has these interesting parts where I could craft some defense. Maybe in the future, you could, like the other option of making like a core mechanic would work if Diablo 4 itself as a base game had changed.
Yeah, I
The
think, oh, go
I
ahead,
was gonna
Sutton.
say, you can kind of think about like one area where I think we have had some success is activities layer, some of the content layer, right? Infernal Hordes was a seasonal thing. It's just part of the game now. Same thing with the pit, and eventually Belial and stuff like that. So anytime that there's a part where we're like, okay, that can safely make its way and can just slot in, we'll just do it. There's been some powers in the past where we've converted them over to be an item that you can get instead. So we're looking for ways to do this. It's just to the point I think Colin was making, not such a clean exercise every single time, given that we have sort of these competing ideals, of, hey, I just want to get into the season and I get to experience the cool thing, not the best version of it, right? And I still want some progression. But I should at least feel something has changed for between today and yesterday or whatever when I was playing. And then the version of that just stays in the game forevermore. Because if we do that every single time, 5 seasons from now, when the season starts, you have +5 mechanics on top of what was already there, right? They're all competing for attention. I
Right.
think that's going to naturally put us in a position where we have to have severe inflation and power growth, power creep, just to make sure that the new thing can have some space to live in an otherwise crowded space, right? So it's just a process, and anytime we have an opportunity to bring something back, we're just gonna. It just makes the game better.
I mean, bloating is a real thing. It absolutely happens. I've seen it many, many times. So and I'm sure, I would imagine, I'm not a developer, it's way harder to develop for B than A, right? To make some really cool thing to throw in there, that's probably a reasonable ask. But making a core mechanic that is interesting and advances Diablo 4 and doesn't add to the bloat and everyone's going to like it. Yeah, just make that every time. That's probably a much bigger ask. Okay, so here's a question, and I would the way that I would ask this is maybe a way to change some people's minds on this, like an opportunity, like a maybe we spin this into like a positive thing. But there are some people that are questioning whether they want to purchase the next expansion. Some of the things, like with the previous expansion, when they said the final boss was Mephisto's dog, we got left on a cliffhanger. We didn't have an epic battle with Mephisto. The Spiritborn is 50 tiers better than every class, which, by the way, was fun for a while. The Evade Spiritborn, it was fun. I don't think anybody can deny that. There are some people worried about whether they should purchase the next expansion. Did you guys kind of feel that some of the things in the expansion didn't quite go the way that you wanted? And are you feeling like the next expansion is going to be um, really good for the game that people should go out and buy?
Am I feeling that the next expansion is going to be good for the game? Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll just. Okay. Okay. Well,
Yes, I do think that. There, it's a longer sentence. Yeah.
I'll take it. um. Okay. Here's another question about balancing. Right. I would think that balancing the game for you guys is like pretty much impossible. Like, I love numbers. I love math. I like sitting around in spreadsheets, and I don't know how I would do it. And the reason that I don't know how I would do it is, we kind of talked about this earlier. The magnitude of a lot of things in the game has gotten kind of out of control. It's like, are you hitting for billions? Are you hitting for trillions? Da 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 da. And I see some core mechanics that are changing, like the health potions and the healing, and the monsters are getting stronger. And you don't start with 15 skill points. Is this part of a bigger plan to bring the numbers back down to planet Earth? And will that in turn help you balance not only the characters, but the monsters and the encounters and pinnacle content and the tower and things like that? Is that the plan that's going on here?
I'll say like it's a secondary plan. Like I think like what we are looking for are areas where we've inflated power and it's not actually doing anything for you, the player, to feel more satisfied as part of what you did, like a reward. Or if it's not just not a meaningful choice, like something that we think a lot about in terms of character customization, is what is a meaningful choice? Like, do I want a defensive aspect or do I want a unique with the damage multiplier in my slot? I'm taking a lot of damage, so I'm going to equip a defensive aspect. We like those chunky, meaningful choices. So what we are looking for are places to take out, sort of just power for power's sake. I think skill points is a good example where it's like it's not actually making the game more interesting. I think it's actually making the game less interesting, and the choices matter less. You just think about like, do I actually give a shit about this blue item at level 2 if I'm level 16? Actually, when it comes to the skill tree, and it's like probably not. So we are looking for ways to trim those out. I say it's secondary because um, generally, again, our first primary goal is creating those meaningful choices, and if that sometimes results in higher damage, then I think we'll take that. It is something we don't necessarily love, though. So I'll agree with the like billions and trillions of damage is definitely something that we don't try and do. So that'd be my answer on that one.
Well, it makes sense. So that it seems like it may all just kind of resolve itself as you take a look at the different, as you said, as you take a look at the different choices that people make and try to make it interesting. It seems like what you have developed lately is driving those numbers down, which once they are down, I think will just help with the. I would imagine it would just help design with the design of the rest of the game.
Totally.
A really simple example in season 11, right, is the renown stuff, including the altars and the power you get from those kinds of things, right? The massive disparity between somebody who's played from the very beginning versus somebody who just starts playing is really, really difficult to balance for. It's like start at level 1 at either theoretical, level 1, or you have a bunch of skill points and a bunch of stat points and a bunch of paragon already
Right.
and way more
Yes.
potions. These are two different worlds. Players were not playing in the same space, even with a seasonal fresh start, which, like, by definition, needs to accomplish that, right? So I know it's like it's a loss, but to Colin's point, there's not really anything interesting about starting with all that stuff that you gained. The whole point of a season is to have that refresh cycle, and it was starting to be detrimental to the overall balance of the game. So out it goes.
I completely agree. Just a quick time check. I'm having a blast. I got some fun questions coming up. How are you guys doing? You want to keep going?
I'm still comfy.
So good.
Oh, the hoodie saved the day again. Okay. Uh, let's talk about my favorite topic, endgame. Towers here. Leaderboards are here. I like that. Thank you. I'm very interested to see like the progression of it as we go forward. It's in beta. We're still hitting for billions. Like, it's whatever. But I appreciate that it's there. Do you guys have plans to add more pinnacle encounters to the game or anything like that? Is that on the radar at all, or other end game content? Like another thing that you guys added was you added the raids, and I guess I had the World of Warcraft mentality. I was like, okay, well, World of Warcraft, you have Gruul's Lair and Magtheridon. We do a Serpent Shrine Cavern, and then they'll release Tempest Keep, and then they'll release Mount Hyjal. But we've still had the same thing. Can you guys talk to me about just high? I know you don't want to give anything away, but high level end game plans. And are we ever going to see something like Uber Lilith, where we can wipe 1 week in a row and see if we can get one kill on her? I thought that was amazing, personally.
On the raid, the intention was not necessarily to enter this kind of cyclical MMO style thing. It's kind of incongruent with the rest of the systems of the game, which is, yeah, if you want to go progress, go do this one piece of content, right? We have a different sort of end game, so we kind of look at that almost in the same vein as Echo of Lilith that you were kind of bringing up, which is like, hey, here's the thing that you can go and you can achieve, you can accomplish, and it's like this big challenge you can go and do. And it's not necessarily intended to be this massively replayed till the end of time sort of thing. It just kind of exists as this, I sort of did it and I can challenge myself to do it. But we are interested in, other ways we can leverage this content in the seasonal framework, where you can say like, oh yeah, you can go do that. Maybe you get something for it for doing it that one time, kind of like what we've done with Echo of Lilith, right? So looking for opportunities like that is, I think, the right space for something like that. We're not necessarily looking to add more explicit, like super difficult raid content in the context of like raid tiers in an MMO, right? Maybe someday we do it just to have more stuff for that kind of feature, but the positioning of that is very different in the action RPG space than in the MMO space. And we're not looking to change the action RPG into an MMO.
Is one of the reasons like maybe you wouldn't want to add more raids is because you guys are working on SSF and that's more of like a multiplayer only thing? Would that be like, do you guys consider that like a waste of your developer time?
Not really. At least I don't view the game in this sort of like this monoculture sort of way, right? I kind of think of it as we have a bunch of different audiences that play this game. One thing that unifies them: dark gothic action RPG. They like Diablo, cool. What are all the facets of that? Let's make sure everybody gets what they need from the game, right? The needs of a casual person trying to play through the campaign on the couch is very different than somebody pushing solo self-found leaderboards, right? They both get to be happy, and we can do we can do everything we can to make sure that they're both happy, and we believe we can.
Okay. One of the most widely discussed topics would be the skill tree. And, it's been accused of being, kind of small in magnitude in terms
What
of
do they
like
call it, Rax? Tell me exactly.
well, I don't know. Like, how mean can I be? How mean can I be? I'm trying to be nice here.
The skill twig.
The skill twig. And
Nice one.
I know you know this, Colin. I know we've talked about this before, but it's that's honestly not like the only problem with it. It might not even be like the main problem with it, right? It's also like where you derive your power from. Like every cool thing that I will ever get on my build has nothing to do with my skill tree, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So obviously, without like giving away future plans, if I remember correctly, not to put words in his mouth, I think Adam said that the skill tree is a major focal point for you guys. Can you just tell me like the high level ideas of how you guys might approach expanding this in the future?
Yeah, so you touched on it. The skill tree is the foundation of your build, and we feel like it's not doing enough to create a broad foundation for builds, so there will be major updates on it on the horizon. That's all I can say.
Okay, this is NDA stuff, guys. We gotta wait for that. Okay, but it sounds like they know what's problem here. So this is one of the things that makes me the most sad in Diablo 4, and it has to do with, I believe it was what Zaven said earlier, or maybe it was Colin. I don't know. We're all talking about everything, where we talked about mythic uniques, right? And how when they first came out, they were the greatest thing ever, and nowadays they're a formality, right? You get your pieces, you craft it, you go kill Belial or Duriel 100 times. It will drop. You put it on. It's a formality. The thing that I loved in Diablo 2 so much, I don't know if there's ever been a game that just gives you that dopamine hit when a jaw rune drops or a griffin's eye drops. It's just the best feeling. Do you guys have you guys looked at that system at all about injecting some kind of dopamine in the future where these mega drops can just happen just by playing? You get home from work, you put the kids to bed, and you're just hoping to hit the miracle on the slot machine here rather than just methodically checking the boxes and putting on your 4 mythic uniques every single season.
Yeah, I think this is something that's very near and dear, right? Like the game should have these exciting moments. Actually, because we have the opportunity to talk to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. When we add the leaderboard, and this is a genuine question, when we add the leaderboard, are you going to be okay if your leaderboard placement in a lot of ways sometimes comes down to somebody who got the god drop? Like if we could make all the mythic unique super fucking rare, right? Only one in, I don't know, let's just say a million drop. And if the person above you is above you because he has Teriel's might, do you think that's going to be a frustrating experience?
If he didn't swipe for it, I mean, I think about it reverse. Why wouldn't they win?
Okay,
Why, like,
that's awesome. Yeah.
if you logged in SSF and we're blasting and you got the sword of 1,000 truths, dude, bro, if you don't win, you fucking suck, dude. You suck. Like, like
Yeah.
I would never withhold putting the sword of 1,000 truths in Diablo 4 for fear that someone might find it over me and beat me. It's exactly the opposite. If you have the sword, I'm gonna try to beat you, and then I'm gonna be DMing you and tell you what a fucking noob you are. Because if I had that sword, I would have done 10 tiers higher.
All right. All right.
You know what I mean? No,
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me at all. But it would bother me. It would bother me if I was playing on standard mode and the guy has every single mythic unique because he swipe or whatever you want to call it, legendary item because he swiped for it. Which is why I'm so glad to hear SSF is coming because I already know unfortunately the top of the leaderboards are just going to be an RMT joke outside of SSF. I don't know how you guys would combat that.
Yeah, that was a great answer, and I appreciate that. So, like, we do want to create more dopamine drops in the game. I think part of it right now is that a lot of the cool drops in the game are very much customizing your build, as well as giving you a ton of power. And I think what that means is, without that customization, build crafting is pretty flat. So we've had to jack up the legendary and unique rates, because you can't assemble a build without all the aspects. So that's like one part of it, but yes, we do want to add more dopamine drops to the game. We're trying this with sanctification, right? Like we also, outside of drops, we're hoping to create some crazy highs of the sanctification outcomes. So it's something that we do want to add to the game very much.
And I wanted to kind of double down on the if the only thing that can elicit that, that feeling is a specific, a helm or a whatever dropping like an item piece of gear, that's a very narrow space. But trying to make as many different avenues where this can happen kind of spreads it around and doesn't put all the pressure on one single part of the game having to deliver that sort of dopamine hit. So sanctification is a good example of how this may be kind of expressed through the crafting side, right? And we're looking actively for other places where we can kind of create that feeling outside of the space of this very specific piece of gear dropped or this very specific item dropped. Not to say in place of those, right? But in addition to those, so those don't have to hold up the entire thing on their back. Game's really big. We feel like there's space to that's worth looking at. So that's this kind of stuff we're looking at right now.
Yeah, there's lots of avenues, right? Like for example, you said the tower there opens up the pit to maybe give you a goblin level that might make you feel like $1 million, for example. That's
Yep.
not a legendary item that could feel good. So here is a very interesting question. Let's just talk about crafting at its highest level. So is crafting ever going to take a bigger role in Diablo 4? When I wrote this question, I've heard people talking about it. When I started to think about, like, you guys are systems guys, when I thought about crafting in the Diablo franchise, it really hasn't ever been that crazy. Like, what do you do in Diablo 2? You have some cube recipes. That's something. And but it's just re-rolling in Diablo 3 and da 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 da. Like, it hasn't been like a huge like entire system that I can remember ever in a Diablo game. But are we going to expand this beyond tempering and masterworking? For example, are we going to be able to take like a good base item, zero to hero, and turn it into something fantastic? Is that on your radar? How do you approach like that system at the high level?
Yeah, it's definitely on our radar. And just to go back to a point Zaven brought up, there's a lot of different people who play the game, and it's not always just like, oh, are you core player, are you casual player? There are some people who just really like crafting, and that's how they like getting their items, and we want to service that. So yes, crafting is absolutely something that we do want to flesh out in the future because we think it's one of those places where it feels really good to have that place to pull the slot machine lever on. Like, can I craft a good base into something amazing? So that is something that we are very interested in exploring.
Are you thinking that in that system that even stuff like gray items or blue items would have value, like you would pick them up and go from there? Or are you thinking like it starts with like a yellow item, or maybe you haven't hashed that out yet?
Potentially, yeah, for sure. If we're not ruling it out.
Yeah. We're definitely further in terms of steps to that, but it's not off the table.
Okay. Loot filter. Or I mean, loot filter? Diablo 4? That a thing?
We're looking into it
Hmm.
actively.
Okay. Actively. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a little better. Okay.
So if
Um
you think about like um, ever since Loot 2.0, or Smart Loot, I should say, in Diablo 3, like the game just like clears out some stuff for you. So arguably the game just has a built-in filter of sorts, and it just sort of just does things for you behind the scenes to make it feel smarter, so you get drops and stuff. So it's a process to kind of sort through what it is that we actually need from something like this.
okay. Um, so I guess kind of tied to loot filter, stash space. We're gonna get more stash space. Is that a thing?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Um, so we got a roadmap for last year. will we get a roadmap for 2026? Is it coming anytime soon? Anything on a new roadmap?
Yeah, so that was the 2025 roadmap, and here we are rapidly getting to the end of the year. So kind of going forward, we're probably going to be adjusting maybe how we like phrase it and talk about it. Something more like a more broad framework of it as opposed to an explicit sort of like launch window thing, maybe. But we are looking at what is the right kind of format to talk about the future plans. Something like the tower, as an example, is just going to have sort of its own timeline and its own reality that's going to be working because it's really iterative. Like we know we have big blank post-it note, insert major iteration here,
Right.
right? It's like, oh, I don't know, let's see what players say, and then we'll do stuff, right? So we kind of have the slots set aside to be able to do some of these things. We don't have explicit plans in all cases. So making a roadmap into 2026 gets way more complex to talk about because it's a IOU iteration at this time. And we just don't know what those plans are in some cases.
Is it just me, or is that actually a better situation to be in? Because what we were in before, it looked like you guys had already worked ahead, but then like right away, people said they didn't like powers, and we got it 4 times in a row or whatever. But now you're like, okay, I have this new feature, and I'm gonna take all the feedback, and I'm just gonna spend a ton of time with all the feedback that we gave the next season, making it better in addition to whatever else you have. That sounds way better to me than what we had before, right?
eh, they'll have their positives and negatives, I suppose, how I look at it. So like if you go look at the 2025 roadmap, tower and leaderboards are on the other side of the year, but you're playing them now. So things change even in the roadmap, right? Like we
Yeah.
literally listen and adapt those plans, and if we have to move things around, we'll move them around. That's always been true, and I think arguably one of the biggest problems with a roadmap of any kind is it feels like it's set in stone, whereas we all know things change and we can move things around, but it feels like it's a very strong commitment and the players don't have any voice and there's no opportunity to react. It's like, no, we absolutely have an opportunity to react and respond and change things, right? But do we really want someone to like every day go and maintain this like public roadmap all the time? So maybe the framework approach works out better. We'll see.
Okay. Question for you guys. Do you guys have any plans to add horizontal progression to Diablo 4? Maybe something not like completely based upon power level or moving further along in the actual game, just like fun little side things. Is that on your guys' radar at all? Do you guys allocate any developer chats or time to things like that?
I think one thing I think we think very highly of is like alting. I think it's a really fun way of horizontal progression in the game. And right now, like I don't think there's enough vectors for you to get cool gear for your alt, right? And I think that's something that's definitely missing. So like alting is something that we think is really cool in terms of horizontal progression. We've tried to do some of this with some of the season's journey objectives in the past, where like there might be some interesting side things for you to go do that's a little bit more horizontal. I'll say like another thing that I think kind of we think is a cool opportunity space is just horizontal progression within your own character, like assembling new builds and things like that. It's part of why we added the armory. I do think like one of the things that is making horizontal progression in terms of like I'm a fire mate or fire sork and I want to create a frost sork is there's a couple of systems that really calcify your build in an obnoxious way that prevent you from wanting to switch archetypes. No plans or anything like that. More just a note on like, yeah, it feels like Paragon sort of like locks you into things and it's really tedious to undo. So that's like a potential opportunity space that we'd love to like make better in the future. Obviously nothing real yet, but more just commentary on it.
That was my next question. Any plans to update the Paragons? We'll consider that one answered. So I'm guessing that I won't get an answer on the next 4 questions, but pardon me while I just YOLO them anyway, if you don't mind.
Go for
Sure.
it.
I guess let me ask it this way. Maybe I can get an answer if I ask it this way. Why is Diablo not in Diablo 4?
he's busy, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. I hope he becomes unbusy because I would love to see him. He's in the other Diablo games.
We are we've been really focused on telling the story of kind of the age of hatred is what we've been kind of thinking about this internally and connecting all of this stuff. And everyone saw obviously in the base game with Lilith and then connecting to Mephisto and then the Harbinger and stuff. So, there's plans in the future, but they are squarely focused on this current arc.
Okay, we're still battling Mephisto. We'll see Diablo later. He's busy. I actually can't believe this isn't in the game. The cow level, like, how is that not in? That's like the most fun thing to do.
What?
How do we not have that?
The
I
what?
have,
The cow level. You know what I'm talking about.
No,
I don't know what you're talking about. There's a cow level?
God damn
I think he
it,
means the
guys.
farm.
Like
I know there's
in
some cows.
Scow's Glen, the cows that roam around the.
Yeah, I killed whatever it was, 600 of them, and I went to the stupid ass shack or whatever, and then the Discord data mined all the things, and it was just a wild goose chase. I did that. I did it twice. I did
I don't know what that is.
it twice actually. You guys
Don't
know
know what that is,
exactly what
sorry.
that is. You put it in the game. You're
I
don't think that's in the game.
gaslighting me.
No,
Sounds like a very elaborate hoax, if I had to
it
guess.
does.
I think probably good to move on. So
Okay, so last question, and we'll wrap it up here. And I'm not going to get an answer, so let me try to ask it in a way that I might get an answer. It seems like all of us, like not at Blizzard, really like the Paladin, and you guys don't seem to share the same love for the Paladin that we do. So is that true? Like why? Like what's the deal with the Paladin here?
can you describe what you mean? What is a paladin?
The holy man that goes around and burns everything and
Oh,
does
Crusader.
does the
Yeah,
smite and the hammers, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, like a
Crusader was
crusader
a
but
fun.
better.
I mean, I think Crusader was a fun class. I don't know. Maybe.
Debatable.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
Who knows? I don't know if it would fit, honestly. Paladin seems kind of like outside the ballpark. So
Yeah, Necro has a shield, so it's good enough.
Yeah. Oh God, that was terrible. Okay, well, on a more serious note, for me, not as a host, but for me as just a fan of the Diablo franchise, for you guys to sit here for more than 2 hours, answer all my questions, just YOLO it, and have a real deep discussion about the game, it means a lot to me. I had a blast talking to you guys. I hope you guys felt the same, and we'll see what the community thinks of it. But I absolutely loved it. Hearing what I don't like hearing me talk, but I liked hearing what you guys had to say. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time. I had such a great time talking to you.
Yeah,
yeah.
likewise. Thank you so much for having us. Like, this was a ton of fun, and it's cool to be able to talk to you in an open forum like this. So it's very unique. Thank you.
And are you guys are there more interviews coming? Are you talking to Rob? And then is there another interview? Like, do you guys know anything about that? I think Rob has an interview as well, right? Is it with you guys or?
Yeah, I think it's us.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. So we'll see what Rob can cook up there, and I don't know. That's all I had, guys. So
Yep.
if you don't have
Yep.
anything,
Duck tomorrow and Rob on Thursday.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's right. That's the order. Yeah.
all right, guys. Well, thanks for everything. Let's do this again in the future. Let's meet back sometime, and if you want to go for round 2, I would love to do that.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome. Thanks, dude.
Okay.
Thanks, Rax. Later.
Later, guys.
Bye.